My boyfriend said, "If you're jealous, that's your issue." After posting cozy pictures with his ex, I said, "I'm not jealous." Then I sent those pictures to her current boyfriend. Suddenly, he understood what real jealousy looked like. My name is Claire Bennett. I'm 27 years old, and when this happened, I got a front row seat to the kind of emotional disaster people usually watch from a safe distance, on a screen, with popcorn in their hands. Only this time, it was my life. The hardest part was that for a long time, I genuinely tried to be fair. I tried to be mature, trusting, and reasonable. I wanted to be the kind of woman who didn't need to police her boyfriend's friendships or feel threatened by his past. I kept telling myself that adults could stay friends with exes, that trust meant not turning every awkward detail into a fight, and that love was supposed to include a little grace. My boyfriend's name was Ethan. He was 25, charming in that effortless, polished way some men are when they know exactly how warm to seem without ever being fully transparent. We had been together for about a year and a half, long enough for routines, shared drawers, spare toothbrushes, and that quiet assumption from everyone around us that this relationship was serious. From the outside, it probably looked solid. For a while, it even felt that way to me. Then there was Vanessa, Ethan's ex-girlfriend. They had dated for 3 years before he met me. They had been broken up for about 2 years, and according to Ethan, they had grown into a healthy friendship. It was the kind of phrase that sounded emotionally evolved on the surface, but somehow managed to make any discomfort on my part seem childish before I even voiced it. At first, I accepted it. More than that, I made a point of accepting it gracefully. I told myself I wasn't the kind of woman who got threatened by history. I told myself trust meant not reading too much into small things, but Ethan brought her up constantly. Vanessa thinks this place has the best pasta in the city. Vanessa showed me that shortcut last year. Vanessa says this director is overrated. Vanessa used to love this song. Vanessa says you remind her of someone she went to school with. None of those comments were explosive on their own. That was part of the problem. It was never one giant betrayal in the beginning. It was a slow accumulation of small cuts. A mention here, a comparison there, a text lighting up his phone at night, a laugh that felt too familiar, a shared memory that quietly pushed me out of the room while I smiled and pretended not to notice. Whenever I asked a normal question, Ethan's tone would change. Not defensive in the obvious way, sharper, more practiced. One afternoon, after he casually mentioned having lunch with Vanessa, I asked, "How was lunch?" He looked at me for half a second too long and said, "Why?" I shrugged. Just asking. He gave a dry laugh and set his keys on the counter. "Claire, you know jealousy isn't attractive, right?" I actually stared at him. I hadn't accused him of anything. I hadn't even hinted at suspicion. I had asked the same harmless question people in relationships ask every day. "I'm not jealous," I said. He gave me a smug little like he had already solved me. After that, it became a pattern. If I asked whether they had been alone, I was insecure. If I said something felt inappropriate, I was controlling. If I pointed out that a boundary felt blurry, I was making drama out of nothing. His favorite word became a weapon. Jealous. He used it lightly at first, like a joke, then casually, like a diagnosis, then confidently, like a fact. The calmer I tried to be, the more he used my calmness against me, as if not having a meltdown meant I had no right to discomfort at all. There is a specific kind of loneliness in being treated like the unreasonable one while you are still trying your hardest to be reasonable. That was where I lived for a while. Not in screaming fights or dramatic ultimatums, but in confusion, in replaying conversations later and wondering if maybe I had sounded harsher than I meant to, in quietly asking myself whether modern love was just supposed to feel this blurry and humiliating. Deep down, though, I knew something simple. Respect should not feel like begging. About 3 months before everything blew up, Ethan stopped even pretending to soften it. Vanessa texted late, and he answered. Vanessa called, and he stepped outside. Vanessa needed advice, and somehow that became more urgent than whatever moment he and I were in. One evening, halfway through dinner, his phone lit up on the table again. I glanced down by reflex and saw her name. There was a heart reaction under the message. He noticed me noticing, and instead of reassuring me, he smiled like I had just proven a point for him. "You really do this to yourself," he said. I set my fork down. Do what? Work yourself up over nothing. I looked at your phone when it lit up on the table. Exactly. He leaned back in his chair like he was exhausted by me, like I was a chronic inconvenience he was learning to manage with patience. It's Vanessa, he said. Not a secret mistress. I held his gaze. I didn't say she was. You didn't have to. That was Ethan's gift. He could put words in my mouth and punish me for them before I even had a chance to deny them. I should have left then. Maybe that's what people always say when they hear a story like this. Leave at the first red flag, or the second, or the fifth. But when you are in it, it never feels like one huge betrayal with dramatic music under it. It feels like moments you think can still be explained, softened, or fixed if you just find the right words. So I stayed. Then came the night that ended any chance he still had of pretending innocence. 2 weeks before everything collapsed, Ethan posted a string of Instagram stories from what he called a friend reunion. That phrase alone made me tired. I saw the first story while brushing my teeth. Ethan and Vanessa at dinner, sitting close enough that her shoulder was tucked against his side. Then another from a dim bar, his arm around her while her face tilted toward him like the camera had interrupted something private. Then another and another. By the time I sat on my bed and clicked through all of them, my chest had gone cold. There was a selfie of Vanessa kissing his cheek, a photo of them clinking drinks with the caption, "Missed this." A grainy late-night shot of the two of them leaving somewhere together, time-stamped after 2 a.m. I stared at that last one for a long time, not because one photo proved cheating, but because I knew exactly how the conversation would go if I brought it up. He would smirk. He would turn it around. He would say the word again. Jealous. I wish I could say I threw my phone, packed his things, or blocked him that night. I didn't. I waited until morning. When Ethan got back, he looked annoyingly normal. A little tired, slightly smug, like someone who had already rehearsed the conversation and knew he was going to win it. He dropped his keys onto the counter, reached for a glass of water, and acted like nothing had happened. I was sitting at the table in yesterday's sweatshirt, calmer than he deserved. Fun night? I asked. He drank first, then looked at me. Yeah, nice catching up. I nodded once. The photos looked pretty cozy. That half-laugh appeared instantly. That expression, like I had stepped right into a trap he had set hours earlier. Here we go. I'm not starting a fight, I said. I'm saying that posting kissing pictures with your ex is a little much. He rolled his eyes. She kissed my cheek, Claire. God. It's not just the cheek photo. It was the dinner shot, the bar, the 2 a.m. post, the caption, the overall tone of it. All of it was designed to say something, and whatever that something was, it was not respectful to me. But Ethan did not want to discuss respect. He wanted the easier story. Your jealousy is exhausting, he said. I looked at him carefully, at how comfortable he was, at how certain he seemed that if he said it firmly enough, I would doubt my own instincts again. I'm not jealous, I said quietly. I'm pointing out that those posts looked romantic, and they were disrespectful. He gave me a cold, patronizing smile. If you're jealous, that's your issue, not mine. I'm not going to be controlled because you're insecure. There are moments that split a relationship cleanly in two, not because they are loud, but because they reveal with brutal clarity that the person in front of you has no intention of meeting you in good faith. I stood up slowly. So if I posted pictures kissing an ex, you'd be fine with it? His answer came too fast. That's different. There it was, the truth. How? He straightened, suddenly irritated. Because you'd be doing it to hurt me. And you're not? He stared at me for a beat, then shrugged like the question wasn't worth answering. We were just catching up. That landed harder than yelling would have, because it told me he thought he could redefine reality as many times as he wanted, and I would still stand there trying to be fair. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't beg him to explain himself one more time. I just looked at him and felt something inside me finally begin to go still. Not love, not yet, but the part of me that kept trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. Later that night, while Ethan moved through my apartment with the same lazy confidence, acting like the conversation was over, I started looking deeper. I went through Vanessa's social media more carefully, her comments, her tagged photos. The details people forget are visible when they get too comfortable performing online. That was when I found something that made me sit up straighter. Vanessa was not nearly as unattached as Ethan had made her sound. She had a boyfriend. His name was Daniel Carter, and judging by his page, he had absolutely no idea what kind of friend reunion his girlfriend had been starring in. That was the moment everything shifted. This was no longer just about Ethan disrespecting me and then calling me jealous to shut me up. It was about two people playing a public game and assuming the truth would stay buried as long as everyone they hurt kept doubting themselves. I opened a new folder on my phone and started saving everything. I didn't do it out of anger. That's the part people always get wrong. They imagine some huge emotional explosion, me crying and shaking while hitting send like it was revenge. It wasn't like that. By the time I sat on my bed scrolling through Vanessa's profile again, I felt almost too calm, like some deeper part of me had already made the decision, and the rest of me was just catching up. Ethan was in the shower, humming, acting like nothing in the world had shifted. I went back through Vanessa's tagged photos more carefully. There was Daniel. His page was the opposite of hers. No curated chaos, no suggestive captions, just normal, grounded pictures of real life. Photos of the two of them hiking, sitting close together on couches, smiling in ways that looked easy and unforced. There was a birthday post from him with a long caption about how lucky he felt. Under it, Vanessa had commented, "Always my favorite person." I stared at that for a long time. Then I found another post from 2 weeks earlier. "Can't wait for our anniversary weekend." So while Ethan was posting "missed this" with his ex, Vanessa was planning an anniversary with someone else. Daniel was the only person in this whole mess who clearly didn't know what was happening, and he was also the one who most deserved to know. I rewatched Ethan's stories, this time not as a girlfriend trying to interpret tone, but as someone collecting evidence. The dinner, the bar, the cheek kiss, the late-night exit. I screenshotted all of it, including timestamps and captions, and added everything neatly to the folder. By the time Ethan came out of the shower, towel around his neck, I had almost everything I needed. "Still on your phone?" he asked casually. "Yeah." He grabbed his hoodie, brushed past me, and said, "You should try not to spiral. It's not a good look." That word again, spiral. As if my reaction to his behavior was the instability. I looked at him, not angry anymore, just tired of explaining basic respect to someone who had already decided I did not deserve it. "I'm not spiraling," I said. He smirked like he didn't believe me. Then he picked up his keys again. "I'm heading out for a while." "Where?" He paused just long enough to be irritating. "Out." "Of course," I nodded. "Okay." No follow-up, no argument. For the first time since I had known him, I didn't play the part he expected. I could see it throw him slightly before he shrugged it off and left. The door clicked shut. I waited a moment, then opened Instagram, found Daniel's profile, and hovered over the message button. There are moments where your life shifts on something very small, a single tap, a choice between quietly walking away and letting the truth stay buried, or risking the explosion that comes from bringing it into the light. I thought about ignoring it, blocking Ethan, moving on, letting whatever he and Vanessa were building implode on its own. But then I thought about Daniel, about his anniversary post, about the certainty in those pictures. I used to have that kind of certainty too. So I opened the message box and typed carefully, "Hey, you don't know me, but I'm dating Ethan, Vanessa's ex. I thought you might want to see what's been going on this past week." I attached the folder, then added one more line. "I'm not trying to start drama. I just thought you deserved the same transparency I didn't get." I reread it twice to make sure it sounded clean and factual. Then I hit send. The message delivered instantly. At first, it stayed unread. I set my phone down, leaned back against the wall, and realized my hands were shaking. Not because I was scared of Ethan, but because I had finally stepped outside the version of myself he had spent months managing. The quiet one, the reasonable one, the one who kept explaining instead of acting. 5 minutes passed, then 10, then 15, still unread. I almost laughed at myself. Of course, life does not explode on command. Then the notification came, seen. My stomach dropped. No typing bubble, no immediate reply, nothing. But I could feel the shift. Daniel had seen everything, and now the truth was no longer trapped inside my version of the story. I didn't know what he would do with it. I didn't know whether he would believe me right away, confront Vanessa quietly, or blow the entire thing open. That part was out of my hands now. For once, I didn't want control. I just wanted the truth to exist somewhere outside Ethan's carefully managed narrative. So I put my phone down and waited. The response did not come as a message. It came as silence first, the kind that stretches long enough to make you wonder whether anything will happen at all before everything does. Ethan stayed gone for several hours that night. When he finally came back, it was late. He offered no explanation and moved through the apartment with the same casual energy, like everyone else was expected to bend around him. "You still up?" he asked. "Yeah." He tossed his keys down, checked his phone, frowned for half a second, then locked it again. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Yeah," he said too quickly. "Why wouldn't it be?" I said nothing. For the first time, I was not trying to guide him toward honesty. I was simply watching him. He went to bed without another word. Sometime around 3 in the morning, my phone lit up with an Instagram notification. Daniel Carter had posted a story. I sat up and opened it. Black screen, white text. Funny how work trips turn into beach dates with your ex. My pulse kicked. The next story was one of the screenshots I had sent. Vanessa leaning into Ethan while his arm wrapped around her. Under it, Daniel had written, "Just friends, right?" That was the moment the door opened, and once it did, it didn't stop. Within half an hour, everything started unraveling in real time. Daniel's profile changed first. Every picture of him and Vanessa disappeared. Then he posted another story, longer this time, 2 years. And I find out through a stranger that my girlfriend has been playing couple with her ex behind my back. If you think I'm overreacting, I have receipts. Receipts. That word hit differently because I knew my screenshots were only the beginning of what he had. My phone buzzed. Ethan was calling. I let it ring out. Then he called again. And again. By the 5th call, I already knew. He had seen Daniel's stories, and whatever panic was spreading online had reached him. Of course it had. People like Ethan live on attention, and now attention had turned on him. I opened Instagram again. Daniel had added more. Screenshots of Vanessa saying she was at a conference, matched against the beach pictures. Messages claiming she was with friends, lined up with the late-night bar photos. The dinner photo with Ethan, now reframed as evidence instead of nostalgia. I lay back against the headboard and watched it unfold like someone else's life cracking open. Ethan kept calling. I didn't answer. The comments were already filling up. People asking questions. Mutuals tagging Vanessa. Someone wrote, "Wait, isn't that her ex?" Another wrote, "This is cheating." And with every new post, something settled inside me. Not satisfaction exactly, confirmation. I had not imagined any of it. I had not exaggerated. I was not jealous. I had been right. Then Ethan texted, "What did you do?" I looked at it for a moment, then typed back. Did what? The typing bubble appeared immediately. "Don't play dumb, Claire. Daniel is losing it. Vanessa is freaking out. He's posting everything." I replied, "I thought they were just friends." He answered fast, "You knew exactly what you were doing. This is insane. You're trying to break them up because you're jealous." There it was again. Jealous. Even now, even with everything burning down in front of him, he reached for the same word. I typed, "If showing someone their girlfriend's public post breaks them up, maybe they had bigger issues." He sent back, "You're toxic." I didn't bother replying. Instead, I returned to Instagram, where Daniel had just posted the real nuclear piece, a collage of screenshots stitched together with dates, times, excuses, and overlapping stories that made one thing painfully clear. This wasn't one night. This was months. That line tightened my chest because it confirmed every small moment that had ever felt off. Every time Ethan had dismissed me, it had not been in my head. He called again. I put my phone on silent, turned it face down, and let him panic. Not out of cruelty, not out of revenge, but because for once, I was not going to be the one chasing clarity while he sat comfortably inside confusion. He could sit in it this time. A few hours later, he stopped calling and showed up at my door instead. I heard the knock before I checked the time. Sharp. urgent. Nothing like the familiar rhythm he used when he still believed he belonged there. When I opened the door, he looked different. Same face, same clothes, but stripped of confidence. His hair was messy, his eyes were red, and his phone screen kept lighting up in his hand. "Are you happy now?" he snapped. No hello, no hesitation, just accusation. I leaned against the frame. About what? He let out a sharp, disbelieving laugh. "Don't do that. Daniel is going insane. Vanessa won't stop calling me. He's posting everything." "Everything?" I asked. "You sent him those screenshots." It wasn't a question. "I sent him public posts," I said. "Things you chose to share." "That's not the point." "It is the point. If it was all harmless, then why does it matter who saw it?" He stared at me like logic itself was offensive. "You twisted it," he said. "You made it look like something it's not." I held his gaze. "Then what is it?" That pause told me everything. For the first time, he did not have an immediate answer. "We were just hanging out," he said finally, "catching up. With kissing pictures, late-night exits, and beach days you conveniently never mentioned? That doesn't mean anything." "Then why is Daniel upset?" Silence stretched between us. He paced once across the small hallway, ran a hand through his hair, and then tried a different approach. "You didn't have to do that," he said, quieter now. "You could have just talked to me." I almost laughed. "I did talk to you. You called me jealous." "That's because you were acting—" "No! I was reacting to something real. You just didn't like that, I noticed." His jaw tightened. "That's not fair." "What isn't fair is you doing whatever you want, and then deciding my reaction is the problem." He opened his mouth, closed it, and for a moment just stood there. Then I watched the shift happen in real time. The anger softened into desperation. "Look," he said, "things just got out of hand. Daniel's overreacting. Vanessa's freaking out. It's chaos." "Sounds like consequences." He exhaled sharply. "Claire, come on." "No, you come on. You posted all of that, not me." He shook his head. "You don't get it." "Then explain it." He paused again, longer this time, and then finally said the ugliest truth in the whole story. "I just wanted you to care." The words landed wrong. Not dramatic, not explosive, just wrong. "I did care," I said. "No, you didn't. You were too calm, too reasonable. I needed to see something. I needed to know you'd fight for me." I stared at him. "You needed me to fight for you, so you posted intimate-looking photos with your ex in public? It wasn't like that." "Then what was it?" He dragged a hand over his face. "I thought if you got jealous, you'd show me you cared." "And when I reacted, you told me jealousy was my issue." "That's because you were twisting it." I let out a slow breath. "No. You wanted me to feel jealous, and then you punished me for reacting. You wanted a reaction you could control. Something that made you feel wanted without forcing you to take responsibility for how you got it." He looked at me like I had finally said something he could not twist away from. "You're overcomplicating this," he muttered. "No, I'm simplifying it." He looked down, then back up, and his voice cracked for the first time. "Can we just fix this?" There it was, the pivot from blame to bargaining. "I'll block Vanessa," he said quickly. "I'll delete the posts. I'll tell Daniel it was nothing. We can reset." Reset? Like this was a glitch instead of a pattern. "It's too late," I said. His face hardened. "Over photos?" "I'm not ending this over photos. I'm ending this because you kept disrespecting me, and every time I noticed, you made me feel like I was the problem." "That's not true." "It is." He stepped closer and lowered his voice. "Claire, please, don't do this." I didn't move. "I already am." Then he tried one last angle. "I love you." I felt the old instinct pull for half a second, the one that wanted to soften and meet him halfway. But now I could see clearly that love should not feel like being managed, corrected, and made to doubt your own reality every time it became inconvenient. "You love attention," I said quietly. "You love being the center of something messy. That isn't the same thing." His expression shifted into anger again. "So that's it? You're just throwing away everything?" I shook my head. "You threw it away. I just stopped pretending it was still there." That landed. I saw the exact moment he realized I was not going to chase him, argue with him, or stay. He stood there for a few more seconds, then stepped back. Fine. He turned and walked away. I closed the door, locked it, and leaned against it for a moment. For the first time in a long time, there was no confusion left. A few hours later, my phone lit up again. This time, it was not a call. It was a group chat. Participants: Ethan, Vanessa, Daniel, and me. Title: Let's Clear the Air. Of course. People like Ethan never leave quietly. They need a stage, and if they feel the narrative slipping away, they build a new one where they can still pretend to be the reasonable one. I opened it. Ethan had already sent the first message. Since everyone's acting like children online, let's handle this like adults. Then another. Claire overreacted and sent things out of context because she was jealous of my friendship with Vanessa. This got blown way out of proportion. There it was again. Jealous. Even now. I didn't reply because Daniel did it for me. Out of context? Then, seconds later, I have 73 screenshots that say otherwise. 73. Even I felt that one. Vanessa jumped in next. This is insane. We're literally just friends. People are twisting normal interactions into something toxic. Daniel replied immediately. Friends don't lie about where they are. Then the screenshots started flooding the chat. Vanessa telling Daniel she was busy with work on the same night as the beach photos. Another message saying she was out with friends, time-stamped against the bar pictures. Then something I had never seen before, a private message from Ethan to Vanessa saying he missed her. That one tightened my chest, because it was not public. I had not sent that. Daniel already had it, which meant this was bigger than exposure. This was collapse. Ethan tried to regain control. You're taking things out of context, Daniel fired back. What context makes "I wish I was with you instead" normal? That silence hit harder than any confession. Vanessa tried to pivot next. Claire manipulated this. She clearly has an issue with boundaries and is projecting. I finally typed one line. I forwarded public posts. You created the context. Ethan ignored me and turned back to Daniel. You're overreacting. Vanessa and I have history, but that doesn't mean anything now. That was when Daniel dropped the real bomb. Did you tell her about Jenna? The chat froze. Vanessa answered first. Who? Daniel sent another screenshot. Ethan. Another woman. Same tone, same late-night messages, same blur between friendship and emotional cheating. Different girl, same pattern. Vanessa tried to defend it. That was before me. Daniel didn't stop there. Okay. What about Caitlin? Another name, another screenshot, another overlapping mess. Now the whole thing had shifted. This was no longer just about me, or even just about Vanessa. It was about Ethan's pattern, the one he had been repeating for years, with different women in different orders, always keeping old attachments alive just enough to stir insecurity, confusion, and competition. He responded more slowly now. You're digging up old stuff that doesn't matter. Daniel's answer came instantly. It matters when it's the same thing over and over. You keep your exes around, blur lines, lie to whoever you're with, and call it friendship. That was the most accurate thing anyone said all night. Vanessa finally cracked. Wait, so you did this with her too? Ethan said nothing. That silence answered her more clearly than words could have. Then Daniel wrote the sentence that finished it. He didn't pick you, he just rotated you. Vanessa left the chat immediately. A few seconds later, Ethan left too. And just like that, the performance ended. Daniel stayed long enough to send me a private message. Thank you. I wrote back, you deserve to know. After a pause, he replied, so did you. That was all either of us needed to say. The silence after everything ended felt different from the silence that came before. It was no longer the silence of confusion or hidden things. It was the silence that comes after the truth has already been dragged into the light. The fallout happened quickly. Within a day, Ethan and Vanessa went from just friends to something publicly ambiguous and obviously messy. They posted one selfie together like they were making a statement, then turned the comments off almost immediately. That told me more than the picture itself ever could. People who are secure in what they have do not rush to silence the room. It did not last. 4 days, from what I heard. Once the secrecy was gone, once the thrill of sneaking and provoking and triangulating other people disappeared, there was nothing solid underneath it. no trust, no real foundation. Just two manipulative people forced to face each other without an audience to play off. Vanessa eventually posted some vague quote about knowing her worth. Ethan posted something about focusing on growth. The translation was obvious. They could not even trust each other after seeing how easily each of them crossed lines. Daniel, meanwhile, seemed to move on quietly. The last thing I saw was not a dramatic post or some revenge caption, just the general sense that he had stepped away from the mess and returned to his own life. That felt healthier than any public statement. As for me, I didn't rush into anything new. What happened left me with uncomfortable questions, not about Ethan, but about myself. Why had I stayed so long? Why had I kept explaining instead of acting? Why had I let someone convince me that basic respect was something I needed to negotiate for? So I started therapy. Not because I was broken, but because I didn't want to repeat the pattern. I didn't want to wake up a year later in another relationship hearing the same word, jealous, used the same way to make me question my own reality. Slowly, things shifted. Not overnight, not dramatically, just steadily. One day I realized I had gone an entire stretch of time without thinking about Ethan at all. Not with anger, not with regret, just not at all. That was when I knew I was truly done. Of course, he came back. It was about 2 weeks later, a knock at my door. Softer this time, less urgent, more careful. When I opened it, he was holding a small box. "My stuff," he said. "You left it at my place." I took it and set it by the door. "Thanks." He didn't leave. I wanted to talk. I leaned against the wall and waited. "I'm sorry," he said. "For everything. I messed up. I didn't handle things right." I nodded once. "Okay." He frowned. "Okay. What do you want me to say?" He hesitated, then finally admitted it. "That you forgive me. That maybe we can try again." There it was. Not accountability, opportunity. I looked at him without the old filter this time, without the version of him I had worked so hard to preserve in my head. "I don't," I said. He blinked. "You don't what?" "I don't want to try again." A pause. "You're just going to throw away a year and a half?" "No, you did that. I just stopped holding on to it." He exhaled sharply. "You're being cold." Maybe. Or maybe I just see clearly now. He stepped closer and lowered his voice. "I did love you." I held his gaze. "You love the attention. You love the reaction. That isn't the same thing." That landed. He tried one last move. "I've changed. I realize what I lost." I almost smiled. "You realize Vanessa wasn't what you thought she was. That's different." He had no answer for that. A few seconds later, he nodded once, tight and frustrated, then turned and walked away. This time, I felt no pull after him, no urge to call him back, no second thoughts. I closed the door, and that was it. No dramatic explosion, no final twist, just the absence of something that had been exhausting me for months. About a week later, I met someone at a friend's barbecue. It wasn't intense or cinematic. It was just easy. At one point, his phone buzzed. He looked at it, then looked at me. "Hey," he said, "my ex just texted about picking up a book. Are you okay with me replying?" I blinked, not because it was a big deal, but because he asked. He didn't assume. He didn't turn it into a test. "I appreciate you asking," I said. He smiled. "Why wouldn't I? We're a team." That word felt completely different in that moment. Not heavy, not manipulative, just right. And that was when I finally understood what I wish I had understood much earlier. If someone constantly tells you your boundaries are jealousy while doing things that would make any reasonable person uncomfortable, the problem is not your insecurity. The problem is their manipulation. And sometimes the best thing you can do is stop arguing, step back, and let the truth speak for itself.